Welcome, everybody. We'll give everybody about a minute to file in here, and then we'll get started. So welcome, and we'll be with you shortly. All right, we'll let a few more people shuffle in here, and we'll get started. All right. Great. Well, welcome, everybody, and thanks for joining us today for our ORCAs in Action ORC March Madness. We've got some craziness happening on the courts right now. The next couple of weeks will be a little nuts, but we all know that it's been a little nuts in retail and in the courts with some pretty big cases over the last couple of years. And most recently, we've got a couple of really nice ones that we're going to showcase today and talk about some of the elements of success. I'm Kevin McMenamin, your host with Loss Prevention Magazine, and with me is my partner in organized retail crime, Jack Britton. Jack, how are you?
I'm living the dream, Kevin. Good afternoon, everyone.
All right. We'll get a little housekeeping out of the way first before we introduce our panelists. First of all and foremost, we want to thank our sponsors. Please visit these guys and show them a little love. Without our sponsors, we wouldn't be able to do the educational sessions the way that we do. And we hope that you'll take a little time to learn a little bit more about them. And if you don't have time, that's all right. I'm going to make the time right now for you, because I'm going to tell you a little bit about each one of them. Starting with Genetec. Genetec Inc. is a technology company with a portfolio that encompasses security, intelligence, and operations. The company's flagship product, the Genetec Security Center, is a physical security platform that unifies IP-based video surveillance, access control, automatic license plate recognition, communications, and analytics. For more information about Genetec, please visit them at www.genetec.com. Next up, we have Sensormatic. Sensormatic is on the forefront of loss prevention innovation that also delivers greater visibility into shrink and improves operational efficiency. Their innovative solutions are designed to help retailers protect their merchandise, prevent shrink, and fight the threats posed by retail crime, while still delivering a frictionless experience for shoppers. Want to see these solutions in action? Stop by their booth. They're going to be at RELA, at the Asset Protection Conference at RELA in booth 309. Or they'll be at NRF Protect in booth 1142. You can also visit their website at www.sensormatic.com. And our last one is Gatekeeper Systems. And that's right, it's a blank screen, but it won't be for very long. Gatekeeper Systems' PureCheck push-out theft prevention solution is an innovative loss prevention technology that will disable a shopping cart at a retailer's exit if it hasn't met the criteria of a paid transaction. Apprehending the merchandise, the PureCheck solution eliminates the need for human confrontation, protecting people, products, and profits. You learn more about Gatekeeper Systems at www.gatekeepersystems.com and watch this really cool little video that they made. This is pretty neat. And there you go.
Love that.
I love, right? I love the little faces they put over them too. Great stuff. All right. Also, a big thank you to our education partner, the Loss Prevention Foundation. If you are LPQ or LPC certified, you qualify for 3 CEU credits for today's session. So make sure you track that in your profile. We also want to put the QR code up. So grab your cell phones and grab that QR code if you are not already a subscriber to Loss Prevention Magazine. Why not? Because it's free, 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 free. You should be a subscriber today. So grab the QR code. If you can't get it now, I promise you I will bring it back towards the end of the session. And if I don't, Stephanie will be very upset with me. So 3, 2, 1 on that. Good. Next up, for our law enforcement partners that are on the call today, scholarships are available for your local department. So please do reach out to me, Kevin M. at learnitmedia.com. We've got the Recognizing ORC and Responding to Retail Theft course that is available. That is also FREE right now because we've got a ton of scholarships to give away, so we can handle your whole department. Shoot me an email and happy to get you guys in free access to that course. And we are about to launch another version of the course, the prosecutor district attorney training version of the same material. So that's coming out shortly as well. We will announce that through our usual channels once it becomes available. But in the meantime, scholarships available for your local department. For your local ORCA, support your local ORCA because we have a new category in the LP Hall Award nominations. The LP Hall Award nominations are open and they will be open through the middle of April. So get to www.lphall.com. This year, there's a new category for the outstanding ORCA. So tell us all about why your ORCA is the best of all of them out there and be this year's winner for the 2023-24 Outstanding ORCA of the Year Award. There's also a bunch of other great categories with Investigator of the Year, Investigation of the Year, LP Leader of the Year, Community Champion, and so forth. So check them out at lphall.com. And with that, I will turn it over to Jack to introduce Rory.
Okay, leading us off here today, we have Rory Stallard, who is the Director of Loss Prevention with Organized Retail Crime at Ulta Beauty. But Rory is also the president of the Coalition of Law Enforcement and Retail, or CLEAR. Rory, good afternoon. Thanks for joining us today.
Jack, Kevin, thank you for having me today.
Absolutely. We appreciate the time. And I know you've got a great update on CLEAR. We've got a conference coming up. Usually your conference is in the fall and you're doing it tied in with RELA this year. So we're looking forward to hearing a little bit more about what's going on at CLEAR and what everybody can look forward to at the conference.
Yeah, absolutely. We're super excited. This is our first endeavor into this type of format with this partnership with RELA. So most everybody knows, but in case you don't, we do have the conference coming up April 14th through the 17th in Dallas. It's at the Gaylord Texan Resort and Convention Center. I will say attendance is on pace for an all-time high for CLEAR and RELA. So hopefully you've been able to secure your hotel reservations. The main Gaylord Texan Resort is already sold out. And so we are into adjoining and sister properties right now. So if you haven't signed up, please make sure you do that. A couple of things that I want to point out in our partnership this year for this conference, it'll look a little bit different for CLEAR. We are kind of getting into the investigator level. And we are also making sure that we've done some things in partnership with RELA to make this a little bit more affordable for our law enforcement partners. So you're going to see more law enforcement than ever before at a RELA event. And you're also going to have, besides just different higher levels of leadership, you're going to have more at the manager and at the investigator level for retail companies as well. So that'll be a new piece that we really haven't experienced before. And then from an ORC perspective, CLEAR is doing all of the ORC breakout training. So all the modules, all the training, all the speakers, all the content that's been developed was developed specifically by our CLEAR team. And so really look forward to what that's going to look like from a breakout perspective. And then we'll also have some things we'll be adding into some general sessions as well. But the breakout sessions will all be, content will be produced by the CLEAR team. So we're really looking forward to that.
That's excellent.
Roy, you also have some a part of the exhibition hall where we'll have some of the law enforcement folks that people will be able to come up and meet face to face, right?
Absolutely. So there's going to be a big, vibrant communities initiative pavilion. So CLEAR is going to have a dedicated space in there. And those of you that have been to a CLEAR conference will see what you've seen before. Some of our merchandise, some of our information. We'll have our podcast. We'll have John Clark. who will be doing our podcast and our live streaming as before. So it'll look and feel like a clear conference from that perspective. And then we've also been able to work with RELA to also have some things happening where we've got several different ORCAs across the country, a considerable amount of ORCAs that are going to participate. They're going to have some kiosks to be able to network and also talk about their ORCAs across the country. So again, that format's going to look a little bit different than what's happened at a RELA conference before. So if you've never been to a RELA conference, you're in for quite a treat. And if you've been before, I think you're still going to be in for a treat because it's going to look and feel a lot different than any RELA conference you've been to before.
That's fantastic. That's excellent. And Rory, I mentioned the ORCA of the Year award that's up there, but Clear is a past winner of the Industry Initiative award. So hopefully we'll get some folks to nominate you guys again. See if we can't make it a twofer for you.
All right, that'd be fantastic.
Really appreciate all the stuff that Clear is doing. Love the partnership with RELA this year. I think this is just going to be such an amazing show. I know I'll be there. Jack will be there. We're excited to be part of it this year. And I think, like you said, it's going to look a lot different than any show that you've been to with RELA in the past. So very exciting.
Awesome. Fantastic. Thank you guys. And thank you guys for the partnership as well.
Oh, absolutely. All right, Rory, I think you're going to introduce our first speakers.
Absolutely. Really looking forward to this. Wanted to take a few minutes and just kind of set the stage here. We've got Mark Tierheimer and Officer Mike Deal with California Highway Patrol. I want to introduce both of these guys. So Mark's a seasoned professional in the world of loss prevention, and he's been focusing on organized retail crime, with a 17-year journey with a lot of just dedication in this piece. Starting out as a part-time loss prevention agent at local stores, and then really kind of showing his aptitude in working from an assets protection perspective through the ranks at various companies, taking on a lot of different responsibility in these various organizations. So Mark's currently the ORC manager for Ulta Beauty in the Southern California market, and he's been with the company 4 years. And Mark is also a newly elected board member of the California Robberies Investigator Association as well. So we want to say welcome to Mark. And I also want to introduce Officer Mike Deal with California Highway Patrol. So Mike graduated from CHP and reported to his first field assignment in the CHP Oakland area in May of 2013. He's one of the founding members of the CHP Golden Gate Division Organized Retail Crime Task Force, and he's quickly become an integral part of the program. Since being assigned to the task force, Officer Deal has had a heavy workload with a lot of variety of responsibilities. And he's been the lead investigator in over 70 investigations. His efforts have resulted in the recovery of stolen merchandise worth an estimated value of $4.6 million and the arrest of 84 suspects. Mike has a ton of vast knowledge related to property crime investigations. He's testified in court and just continues to do an outstanding job just being an expert on retail crime in many different formats. He's worked a lot of high-profile investigations, and he's just been an awesome partner to combat organized retail crime. He has some outstanding working relationships with his peers, supervisors, agencies, and retailers. And because of his hard work and dedication, his supervisors and peers voted him Investigator of the Year in 2021. And just a plug from an Ulta perspective, he's absolutely been fantastic. Him and his unit, all of CHP, all the divisions has done fantastic work for us. And that has really helped to solidify that partnership. And I've had the opportunity for my team, and I've been able to join Mike a little bit as well. And he just does a fantastic job. And so I want to say welcome to Mike as well.
Excellent. Outstanding. Well, welcome, gentlemen. I'm going to stop sharing screen here so that Mike can share his.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Let me get this going. All right. Good morning, everybody. Just make sure everybody can see the screen well.
Sure, Mike.
All right, good. So good morning, everybody. Thank you for having me. My name is Mike Deal. I'm with the California Highway Patrol's Organized Retail Crime Task Force based out of Northern California, primarily in the Bay Area. So this kind of a quick background on this case obviously was presented to us from Ulta Beauty. And we got this closed from the bottom to the top, and it was a direct reflection of how well we worked and partnered with not only the allied agencies, but specifically the retail sector, which was Ulta and Mark Tierheimer. Kind of kicking this off. So this is my team. Like I said, we're based out of the Bay Area. We're housed in Oakland. My sergeant and supervisor is Sergeant Manny Navarez, myself, and my partners, which are going to be investigators Chad Tardif, Eddie Garcia, and Anthony Wheeler. So kind of breaking down a case overview and the timeline of how this case kind of, got off the ground. Back in July of 2022, Ulta Beauty identified booster crews with losses exceeding $700,000 from coast to coast. Ulta Beauty initially requested assistance from the Department of Homeland Security, and come January of 2023, HSI partnered with the Organized Retail Crime Task Force in the Valley Division, which encompasses the greater Sacramento area and the Sacramento Valley. They began working the booster crews, and it quickly spiderwebbed out, as we're going to cover. Come August 2023, the investigation was presented to my team, and I was asked to assume the lead investigator in the role, partnering with the special agents from the Department of Homeland Security, as well as the primary representatives from Ulta. Come December of 2023, this is when, so from August 2023 is when we assumed the primary role. December 2023 is when we dismantled everything. That's when we ended up obtaining court orders to have search warrants issued, arrested the individuals at the top, and kind of started dismantling this fencing operation. So kind of covering the thefts involved. We identified boosters in over 250 thefts from the Ulta Beauty retail stores. There was 18 states involved, and there was nearly every county in California affected. Primarily was in San Diego, Orange County, and Sacramento counties. So for us, that was kind of a key giveaway right there. Why is there so many grand thefts occurring down in the Southern California area and Sacramento County Sacramento County is easily explainable because primarily all these boosters lived in the greater Sacramento County area, but why would they affect the Southern California market so greatly? So that was kind of something that tipped us off. Over the course of the investigation, we did identify over 12 boosters. We identified them via video surveillance, the review of cellular phones, and the comparison of arrests and clothing. So with this aspect of how we identified them, the working relationship we had with Ulta was paramount in this. Because I could immediately hit up Mark and say, Mark, I need this. Like, we have these videos, I have these internal loss reports. We don't have this. We're missing video from this angle. Ulta has incredible pinhole cameras at the door, which gives immaculate views of people with unique characteristics, piercings, tattoos. And the big thing, what we see is we like to break down the cases by incident, because obviously chronologically, if you establish the suspected booster, these great video surveillance cameras that Mark and Ulta was able to provide to me was, hey, their fingernails are the same. You can see the same tattoo on the hand, or maybe, their face mask was down or hood was up, and you can see unique characteristics that these boosters had, which really put all the puzzle pieces together, linking these boosters from cases that was far east as Massachusetts and Pennsylvania, all the way back home here in California. So as we assumed the investigation, the Golden Gate Division did August 23, 2023. We consulted with HSI and CHP. That's kind of what I consider the inception period of when we assumed this investigation. We worked with our field support unit, which is our criminal analyst. They create great workup packets. So the special agent and I asked our analyst, hey, reach out to all these different agencies with all these investigations, and we want you to get copies of them, compile all of them and who we identify in each incident. So we just have a huge working packet with as many as 90 theft reports, grand theft reports, arrests, and whatnot, also coupled with the internal reports generated by Ulta. And kind of touching on that, Ulta does a great job with this, because here in California, from the prosecutor standpoint, is there doesn't always need to be a PD report associated with a criminal act. So if, say, there was no theft report documented with the local jurisdiction, I could use the theft report that was generated by Ulta and use that because it is a true documented loss. They do great jobs because as soon as they generate that, they attach all the still shot images, the video surveillance. So it's very easy to work through, which is what prosecutors want, and they do a great job with that. Now kind of moving to the next bullet point here of information provided by an arrest in Pennsylvania. So during that arrest, two boosters, which we're going to cover. One's name is Kimora Gooding and the other is Serena Reyes. They ended up getting arrested in, I want to say it was Abington Township in Pennsylvania. And during that interview, one of the primary, what I call, I have two heavies in this case, and the heavies is kind of like the ringleaders of the fencing or the booster crews. The primary kind of buttoned up and was like, hey, I want my lawyer. But the secondary, she was kind of softer, kind of rolled, said, hey, we have somebody in California. They're giving us lists of what we need to get. They're basically flying us around the country, paying for our hotels, and we just get it and we bring it back and she pays us. So that little tidbit of information was detrimental in all of this, which kind of showed how vast this crew was working and the conspiracy aspect of it. Multiple subjects and crews not operating together would steal the same items, cosmetics in the same manner. So while working with, so we had an issue with this because obviously with conspiracy, we have to have them all working together. But we had two different crews, my two heavies. They were stealing the same exact items, stealing the same exact way, and they were basically boosting the product in the same exact type of bags. So I would reach out to Mark and I asked Mark, like, why do you think these are the same people? And he gave me quite the elaborate, detailed list of the reasons why, whether it was they, one crew was hitting in this town, they were in this town. If they're out of state, hey, they're in close states together. The same cosmetics were being taken. So obviously that's another little clue there that, hey, in California, fencing operations are everywhere, but people steal everything. But when you have crews working and stealing the same exact thing, obviously there's somebody putting out mass orders, which was great because then obviously that kind of leads us to believe that there's a bigger fish out there. So as all these cases were kind of coming in and we're getting the investigative reports, whether they're from OLTA, allied agencies, we're finding out they have arrests and some subjects are together, but they don't get arrested because say they were acting as a lookout and not taking the product, but obviously still part of this criminal organization. So for example, with Colma Police Department, they ended up arresting two of the boosters, which was a Priscilla Ramos and an Alexandra Averhart. They ended up taking the cell phones. They performed digital forensic extractions on the cell phones, but they never reviewed them. So we partnered with them. They said, hey, you guys can turn it over. We understand what you're working. And they basically wrote a sharing order so we could start digging through the phones. What was great about that is that they had very good body worn cameras and also in-car cameras, basically for when they detained one of the subjects who was a subject we're again going to cover, which is Reina Munoz. And she had never been arrested, but because of such clear video quality coupled with her being identified by the PD but not getting arrested, we were able to say, yes, this person is definitely involved. And that was great when we were showing kind of like play-by-plays of how subjects looked when she was actually committing the thefts. We worked with Sacramento Police Department, obviously, because a good majority of them lived in the Sacramento County region. We understood that we were working in basically trying to arrest the same subjects. So we worked together. They ended up authoring what's called the pen register trap and trace warrant, which basically is almost like if you have somebody's cell phone, you can track where they're going. We worked together on that. We kind of worked with the agreement that once these subjects were taken into custody, they would go ahead and relinquish the cellular phones that were seized during the search warrant and the arrest over to us to work the bigger picture. Elk Grove PD, again, Sacramento County, they had a vast knowledge of the subjects we were looking into. They assisted in secondary identifications of the subjects, whether through contacts or arrests. Now kind of working through the boosters we identified. So as I was kind of describing earlier, how my two heavies was Priscilla Ramos, which is depicted on the top left, and Kimora Gooding depicted on the top right. They were obviously involved in the most thefts. And keep in mind that when I put 77 thefts and 75 thefts, that's strictly in California. And then they would work kind of through their arsenal of boosters that would be plug and play. But in every single incident that we captured, with the exception of about two, either Priscilla Ramos or Kimora Gooding were present. As you can see through there, we have Alize Chavez, Asia Drake, who I've arrested about 2 or 3 times already, China McDowell, who I've arrested all for ORC, Deshaun Oliphant, Serena Reyes. And kind of touching on China McDowell, what was interesting is I had arrested her following a vehicle pursuit, which was initiated in Sacramento County, and they called us out because they're like, hey, we have all these cosmetics. We don't know what's up with it. So maybe the Retail Crime Task Force can help us. So kind of a little snippet of how proper documentation, even on the retail side, goes a long way, because you never know how small something is can be detrimental in the future. Is when we recovered the cosmetics that were inside of the car that they fled from following the vehicle pursuit. There was a U.S. Post Office, like one of those specific payment boxes, where it's whatever you can fit inside the box, it will be shipped for a flat rate price. We noticed that, we photographed it, thought it was a little peculiar, thought maybe it was just storage that she was kind of maintaining the stuff in, which obviously played a rather pivotal role moving forward. Some of the other boosters was Joyce Jimenez, Jasmine Diaz, who's a Los Angeles County resident, Amari Williams, Reina Munoz, Deja Dunn, Tatiana Woodward, and Alexandra Averhart. Now, from all of those cell phones that we ended up extracting data from, we're going over them, we're reviewing everything, looking at photographs, looking at conversations, trying to find key giveaways that would kind of tip us off. So as we we're going through them, obviously getting search warrants issued granting the search of these electronic devices, we noticed conversations with certain individuals, key things like, hey mama, you want to meet, or hey, I've got stuff, you want to meet up, and they'd be sending kind of like the screenshots of calculator payments of what was being owned. But then we start seeing these images which matched up with what was captured during the interview back in Pennsylvania about a subject sending lists of items with what they would acquire for stealing those items. So these are all high-end cosmetics, primarily sold at Ulta Beauty. So this kind of, again, matched up with everything leading up to this point, I guess you can say. So again, not only were conversations located capturing and conspiring the thefts, but also conversations with suspected fences at the time, which was Michelle Mackin and Alina Franco. So they would have the boosters ship the packages, which were to a quote unquote online makeup store at a U.S. Post Office box, which was in San Diego County. So once we kind of were going over the phones with one of the primary boosters, which was a Kimora Gooding, we start realizing, okay, there's very, very lengthy conversation over a 12, 13 month period. And she begins telling her, hey, give me your address so I can ship them to you when she's out of state. So she tells them online makeup store in an address. So we search the address, and it's a post office. So we end up taking that that name of online makeup store, realizing it's probably not an eBay. So we start doing a deep dive into Amazon. So we go small business owner, and ships only and stuff like that. And we start typing in these specific items that were being provided to the boosters to steal. And lo and behold, we come across online makeup store on eBay. So we end up going through, searching it, thousands of items of the same exact item sold in a month. And then it'll also provide how many sold in a year. We ended up contacting Amazon's internal team who helps with retail crime, provided their search warrant over to them to kind of basically provide everything that they had retained on the person in dominion of online makeup store. And we found out that the operator was the fence I had in question, which was going to be a woman by the name of Michelle Mack. And then also that in calendar year 2022, she had a earnings of $1.85 million. And since the inception of the business in 2012 was in excess of $8 million. So they broke it down annually on what she was basically being paid out through Amazon. And you saw just small gains, small gains, small gains. Come 2019, 2020, you see a huge rise where it goes from maybe like $250,000 to $350,000, and you start seeing $800,000, $980,000, $1.1 million, 1.85. We don't know what was actually sold up until the time we actually pulled this operation down. So we still don't know what she actually sold in the calendar year of 2023. So obviously with what we had already identified, we kind of started doing a deep dive, doing the workups on Michelle Mack. We identified she was a 54-year-old female. She previously lived in Arizona, moved to California in 2019. She had was the owner of multiple LLCs, and the most active business called was 95 and Sunny, which was important because on the Amazon return, the business name that she operated under was not only the CEO of Michelle Mack, but the business was named 95 and Sunny. If we looked at 95 and Sunny online, they said they sold like designer like nail files, claiming earnings between like $1 and $5 million, which we obviously felt was very unrealistic, and was obviously just a page that people put up as a front or a ruse. They recently purchased the house that she was residing at for $2.6 million, which was in North County, San Diego. Additionally, we did identify the U.S. Post Office box, which was within a mile or two of her residence. Alina Franco, excuse me, was the secondary subject we had in question. We identified her because on the booster's cell phones, they had her identified as quote unquote Lena makeup lady. So key giveaway right there. Why would you name somebody a makeup lady unless they had a specific purpose to be contacted? Identified she was a 36-year-old female who lived in San Bernardino County. And she actually, when we started doing the work a bit deeper, we found out that she did have criminal arrests, and she had a pending case out of San Bernardino, I want to say it was San Bernardino County or Simi Valley, for fencing stolen retail merchandise with a completely different booster crew, which was all stemming from Ulta Beauty thefts. So before we kind of move forward in this, obviously we had all this information. We had phone numbers, we had subjects positively identified, we had where they were living at. We ended up authoring multiple pen register trap and trace warrants, again, to be tracking things coming in. The issue is that we knew we weren't going to be getting a lot of data because they communicated via WhatsApp, which is very difficult to navigate through and get information from because that operates on data rather than cellular. So what we're primarily focused on is finding the geolocation data to see if Miss Alina Franco and Michelle Mack ever met up, which we did get that. We had them meeting up together in local cities and towns, which we suspected were meets or drops. And then even on one occasion, which was only, I believe, a couple days before we executed these search warrants, Michelle Mack actually drove to Alina Franco's house and was there for a substantial amount of time, several hours. So that obviously kind of linked the fact that, hey, we have one booster crew that was primarily going to Alina Franco. We had one booster crew primarily going to Michelle Mack, and now we have the two of them working together. So it kind of completes that whole conspiracy umbrella to where we totally suspected that there was a grand scheme, like a one-minded goal that they were all working towards. So we partnered with the Attorney General's office on this investigation. Attorney General's office, her name was Deputy Attorney General Asil Mahmood. She was giving us information. We were kind of working around kind of like kind of rebuttals, things that they would kind of contest, like, oh, we're operating legitimately. So the big question is, how are they getting this stuff? So what I did is I reached out to Mark, and Ulta retains a ton of data. Mark can probably chime in on this, but I asked Mark, I said, hey, how do we know that these people maybe aren't buying liquidated product, this and that? So I gave him names, dates of birth, stuff that isn't sensitive, and said, hey, can you do a deep dive into this? And Mark, you can kind of touch on how you guys operate on that, and you were able to give me a lot of great information on that.
Big thing too is and a lot of retailers have product that's specific to them. So even though we have like product with other retailers like Sephora and stuff like that, the big thing is a lot of our merchandise, the vendors don't want it to be sold, in downtown LA and MacArthur Park, stuff like that, where the environment isn't really controlled and the perception isn't good for their company and their brand. So for someone to say it's liquidated or they get it secondhand or returns that they bought, whatever the case may be, it's just not factually correct. It just it doesn't happen in that the discounts they get. One thing I like to always say is no other company or no other small business has the buying power of an Alta, of one of our competitors, stuff like that. So for them to actually buy it legitimately and make a profit, that's one thing that's just not possible against what Alta could do in regards to like costs and stuff like that.
So I crutched on Mark quite a bit. His wife probably didn't like me by how much I was blowing up his phone, asking for things to make sure everything was in line. But we got it. And the Attorney General's office, the DAG we were working with, she's very particular, very precise. So we had to jump over a bunch of hurdles to make sure that she knew we had a solid case. So she was like, I don't want to compromise or jeopardize anything. So she wanted everything. And I put Mark through the ringer to make sure we got that to happen, which obviously worked out come tea time on December 6th of 2023. So come December 6th, 2023, we obtained search warrants for multiple financial institutions. The subject's address, Lena Franco, Michelle Mack, who lived down in San Diego County, the U.S. Post Office, and I believe that was it. So with great coordination, we had teams from Golden Gate Division, which is in the Bay Area again. We partnered with our teams down in Los Angeles, which is our Southern Division ORC team, and then also Border Division's ORC team. It was rather difficult because obviously these locations, for us, it was about a 7.5-hour drive down south. And then we also had to coordinate teams, making sure we had everything done at the location in San Bernardino County, everything handled in San Diego County, and then also making sure that the retail representatives could be there to properly identify their product and then facilitate transportation to when and where we could do a proper and adequate inventory. So Mark and his team members did a great job with that. There was absolutely no hiccups, operated very smooth. One of the better, probably one of the best operations we did in executing search warrants with good recoveries with such a vast geographical separation between the two. So we assigned representatives from our computer crimes investigations unit, which deals with the securement of all electronic devices, members of our Golden Gate team, and they assisted our Southern Division ORC team to execute the search warrant at 1013 Whistle Stop, which was in San Bernardino County, and also Alina Franco's house. So they lived in a gated community, which posed a little bit of issues, but we were able to get in there. In the top left corner, that was Alina Franco taken into custody. The top center picture is all the representatives that were there assisting. And then just a few images, which is the top right, down along the bottom three. She had stuff from Sephora, Ulta, Victoria's Secret, Bath and Body Works, and Sunglass Hut, because that was another location that was kind of on our radar, because we did know that a few of these booster crews were also not only going after cosmetics, but also Sunglass Hut, which is rather problematic here in California right now. And we did locate product from all of those retailers there. Moving on to Michelle Mack, who was kind of the ringleader of everything, who lived in 30434 Montreset Street in North County, San Diego. As you can see, it was a quick search. It wasn't that big of a residence, but a beautiful home. They had 2 Jeep Gladiators. One was brand new, Chevy Corvette Z06. They had a $25,000 golf cart, Lexus R500, and this massive home which had a vineyard on the back. It was huge. As we got in there, we realized that so she had 2 separate 2-car garages. In the first garage, or kind of as you proceed through the front door and kind of hang a right out the front door, which leads you to kind of like a little office space, and then the entryway into the first 2-car garage was kind of her working area, doing all of her Amazon fulfillment orders, where she's printing off labels, kind of prepping stuff for packaging and whatnot. And then when you walk in the first 2-car garage, you can kind of see on the top left and top right pictures, she had display racks everywhere. She had tables, she had everything set up, broken down by the shade, the volume that's inside of the Ulta Beauty product, just everything laid out. It was like a little mini store is what we called it. During this event, we did have MSNBC there, or CNBC. Don't quite remember, apologies, but they were kind of documenting the incident. And the bottom left picture is what we were pulling out, and that wasn't even all of the product. Kind of in comparison to other search warrant operations, it doesn't look that much product, but figuring inside of each one of those totes or containers, they're tiny little items. So they were all containing anywhere between 25 to 150 units a piece, and they're all high dollar items. The bottom right two pictures, that's kind of the inventory, some inventory pictures, just kind of showing some display tables of those are all identical, similar items, to kind of help the process of how Mark and his team determined they were going to conduct the inventory, because that was one of the factors that the Attorney General's office, is she wanted numbers that day to begin the complaint to get these people charged. So after the search warrant was conducted, we ended up recovering 9,222 stolen items from Ulta and Sephora. There was a total value of $387,000, just over 387 grand. We seized over $9,600 in cash, and we froze 5 bank accounts. Kind of backtracking a little bit, when we did go serve the court order at the post office, it's a federal post office, therefore we couldn't do it. So we did partner with a U.S. Postal Inspection or Inspector Services, and they were able to generate court orders and seize additional packages that not only she had shipping outbound to unbeknownst buyers from Amazon, but also incoming packages from known boosters. So that was great because they put their names on there, put their address, and we already had them identified. Many of them were charged in this criminal complaint. So it was just really well. Unfortunately, I wasn't there for that. But again, with working with Mark and his team, and then also our guys down in Border Division, which is the San Diego County, they were able to kind of facilitate the chain of custody to get it over to Mark so he could kind of further that inventory and get the numbers over. Kind of moving into some of the text messages and conversations, we felt these were really good. Just a disclaimer, it's a conversation between Michelle Mack and one of the boosters. They do use foul language at times, so I do apologize, but we felt it was important to kind of capture the conversation and see how these fences kind of speak with boosters, which is really strange because obviously you have Michelle Mack, and she's living in this high dollar community, driving high end cars, dressed to the nines, and these boosters are working with which very much of the time are very hardened criminals, and how much respect they're giving to these fences, because they control the money, they control these boosters' kind of income, if I may. So as we can see, we have Michelle Mack, and then her husband Kenneth Mack, which was also charged in the criminal complaint. So during the cellular phone analysis we performed on their electronic devices, we located a conversation of interest. So the first conversation began, and it was Kenneth Mack text messaging his wife saying, "I'm playing golf with 2 ex-police guys. One was a CHIPS, so CHP officer, one was a detective for retail crime. I told him that I was retired." So Michelle Mack says, "Good cover." Kenneth Mack responds with, "The retail cop now works for a drugstore chain in theft." And Michelle Mack says, "Don't ask too many questions." And so I'm not. They kind of continued, but kind of important, showing the knowledge of the two of where they were acquiring the product that they sold on Amazon. The next conversation I'm going to show you is the one that I kind of described with the foul language. So my apologies if I offend you, but again, I felt like it was important, and we'll kind of move on from there.
I just want to confirm that you're not even considering turning anyone in that you've been selling to, period. You've referenced it in your messages a few times, but I just want to hear from you that that's not even something you'd consider doing.
Michelle, I would never, ever, 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 ever in my life ever do no shit like that. I just be letting you know what's going on because of our situation with Serena and we don't know anything about that and she won't speak about nothing. When stuff like this goes on, I look at everything like everybody's supposed to be a team. Everybody should have everybody's back. Michelle, I would never ever do no shit like that. I just be keeping you updated.
Thank you. That just reassures me so much. I knew that in my heart you wouldn't do anything to me like that, period. But I feel like Serena may have. So I just want you to be cautious and for her to be cautious. Is this a charge that you caught with her as well? Question mark.
Yeah, I would never do that to you. I would never do that to anyone, honestly, because I already know how this goes. I've been to jail before. I just know you always say, I'll wait for my lawyer. No, nothing. I'll just wait for my lawyer. So that's what kind of scares me with Serena because I know that she's never been in this situation or never been to jail. And that was the first time when me and her went to jail in Pennsylvania. That was the first time she ever been to jail. And I can tell she was like really shooken up. And she's just like, why are you so calm? And I'm like, because I've been through this before. I know how it goes already. So yeah, but no. So this case, the Wisconsin one, what I'm going to tomorrow, this is the one with Deshawn, the other girl.
So obviously that was pretty good because Michelle Max is expressing concern. Come to find out, one of her fellow fence operators that she was working with did get arrested, which I suspect to be when Elena Franco was charged in San Bernardino County. And Kimora Gooding begins talking about the arrest back in Pennsylvania when she said she wanted to speak with a lawyer. And Serena Reyes provided that information that a woman in California was providing those lists. Then they begin talking again about Deshawn Oliphant, which in Wisconsin, Kimora Gooding and Deshawn Oliphant were arrested following an Ulta Beauty theft. So it kind of tied everything together. Yep, these people all know each other. And then also the fact that Kimora Gooding is almost educating the booster she's with, along with Michelle Mack. Just tell the cops that you want to talk to an attorney, and because they know that we can't ask them any further questions. So come the end result, the day of December 6th, we arrested two suspects. We ended up opting to only arrest these two that day and leave Kenneth Mack present because they had two juvenile children, which was obviously the ones we arrested was Michelle Mack in the top left and Elena Franco in the bottom right. They were booked into the San Diego County Jail for the charges of organized retail crime or theft, which is California Penal Code 490.4. California Penal Code 487A Adam, which is grand theft. California Penal Code 496A, possession of stolen property. And California Penal Code of 182 Adam 1, which is conspiracy to commit said crimes. Now, kind of breaking down our ORCTF locations as we're kind of discussing. We have Valley Division, like I said, which is in the greater Sacramento Valley area. Golden Gate Division, which is my team. Southern Division, which is basically the Grapevine down through Southern County or Los Angeles County to Orange County, as well as Border Division, which is Orange County down to basically the southern part of California. So that's geographically where we are located. And then we also partnered with our Computer Crimes Investigations Unit, which is based out of Sacramento County. They're one of the top digital forensic labs or e-crimes labs in the state. And then our criminal analysts, which are the ones who we crutched on rather heavily to kind of compile everything together, so we could focus on doing the groundwork and they could focus on the administrative stuff, background searches, and kind of putting case packets together for everybody. We partnered with the Department of Homeland Security, Elk Grove, Colma, the Colma Police Department, and Sacramento Police Department. And the next one we're going to show you is kind of a news segment that was captured. The facts are primarily right, but this was a news segment that was released just days after the incident.
We begin tonight with a San Diego County woman who is accused of leading a nationwide shoplifting ring worth millions of dollars. Good evening and thank you for joining us. I'm Carlo Cicchetto.
I'm Marcella Lee. The Bonzel woman is accused of recruiting others to steal items from Ulta beauty stores across the U.S. and then selling those stolen items online. CBS 8's Rocio de la Fe has the latest tonight on the investigation.
Michelle Mack was arrested after a 2-year-long investigation. Federal agents raided her Bonzel home on December 6, where they say they found plenty of evidence she's a ringleader behind this criminal enterprise. Michelle Mack, who, according to search warrants, lives at this Bonzel home, is behind a nationwide shoplifting ring that targeted Ulta beauty stores in various states. The investigation, which began in 2021, says Mack paid as many as 12 people to steal from the beauty store and other retail outlets and ship the stolen goods to her post office box in Bonzel, and that Mack would then sell the items on Amazon. CHP officers first began investigating 12 people they believed were involved in retail theft at Ulta stores in Southern California, including San Diego County. Eventually, 2 of them were arrested on the East Coast. They told investigators it was a woman in California who was behind it all. The information, which included social media messages, led investigators to Mack. Documents show that Mack would give the shoplifters a list of items and retail stores to target. Mack is even said to have paid for flights, rental cars, and hotels for the shoplifters. Earlier this week, San Diego County District Attorney Summer Stephan testified before Congress about organized retail theft, calling it a major challenge across the nation.
Public safety, the safety of our children, our businesses, our communities, small and large, that is not a political issue. That's a human issue. That's a human rights issue. Nothing will thrive without safety. It is not just an economic issue. If you go to the ground level and actually talk to the employees in the stores, you will sense the fear and the trauma and how much impact this has on human beings.
Back in October, Stephan's office met with Ulta Beauty in San Marcos after the location was hit last year by a team of thieves. CBS 8 reached out to the DA's office to see whether it was the same crime ring, but we have not heard back. Ulta reveals they worked with authorities on the investigation, telling CBS 8 they have a dedicated nationwide team of investigators who work closely with various law enforcement agencies and other retailers to solve complex cases involving organized theft operations. Amazon sales records show Mack's business made nearly $2 million in 2022. She sold nearly $8 million on the site since 2012. Federal agents and CHP officers raided Mack's home on December 6, where they are said to have found a mini store of stolen goods and cosmetics worth approximately $350,000. Rocio de la Fe, CBS 8.
So in finality, the criminal complaint was filed. 9 subjects we ended up moving forward with and charging, which was going to be Michelle Mack, her husband Kenneth Mack, Alina Franco, and 6 of the primary boosters that affected all of these thefts that had this operation up and running for so long. We're still moving forward in that. Multiple subjects have been arraigned and have pending court dates on moving forward. We did issue additional search warrants with their bank accounts and residence, which is still pending. And that's kind of where we're at right now. So again, my sergeant with his email right below, which is Sergeant Manny Navarez, myself, Mike Deal, that is my email address, and our home office, which is in Oakland at 1515 Clay Street. Thank you all for hearing my presentation. I'll turn it over to Mark.
Yeah, I just want to bring up a couple points. So one of the big things too, and Dill kind of went over how many years it really took to put it together and how much information there was. I mean, there was there was a lot of agencies that were involved in kind of tracking and communicating with the ORC team. So not only myself, but we had multiple. We had Carolyn on the East Coast, Chris out of Pennsylvania, and then we had Ryan, which is helped out in Wisconsin too. So this is one of those cases that really shows if everyone kind of works together and pieces it together, we could achieve really really big things. And this is just one of those cases I think that really reflects that. So keeping those contacts, those relationships. I mean, Dale could tell you I met him almost 4 years ago. And just by building that relationship with him and his team, builds that level of trust that the information we're putting out is legitimate and correct. So that's one thing I was just trying to echo with this case, and just kind of leave everyone with.
Yeah, amazing work, guys. Absolutely incredible. And I don't know if you guys can see the screen the way that I do with all the applause and love and affection and cheering that's going on in the background there. We don't see that every day. And that's not just because, people aren't cheering for Jack and I, but because, this is one that stands out from, so many other cases out there. The way that you put this together, the diligence that you had in building the case, in creating the partnerships, and tracking these guys down is just amazing. Absolutely amazing work.
You know what, guys? I know we're running short, but I do want to bring one thing up that I thought was really important. Rory, you brought it up as well. The fact that you use these scanners to help go through the inventory, and how that really expedited your ability to go through the merchandise that you have. Can you give us real briefly how that worked?
Yeah. Just to add to that, I know Mark touched on it during the case that it was really important for the prosecutor on this case to know that when we finished those search warrants, that they left that day with an accurate count and a dollar amount. And I know we're all in different places from a retail standpoint. Not all of us are on the same data points. We're using different case management systems. We explored something new for us at Ulta, where we were able to scan the product in live on site into our case management. And because those POS tables and everything are built into our case management, is that as we scan it with these wireless scanners, it automatically knows the price point, and we're able to add that into the case. And so that's something new for us that we kind of built and tested specifically for this case. And the end result was we didn't have to wait for a week and a half of analysts to do VLOOKUPs. We didn't have to capture something in a spreadsheet and do a conversion or anything like that. We were able to scan live into case management, leave that day, and be able to tell law enforcement before we left, here's how many items we scanned, here's the price point, here's how much it is. And then, of course, things that didn't show up in our system, it also made it easier to partner with the other retailers and say, hey, this product's not ours. It's not showing up in our system. We don't carry this. So we could separate out the product. So I think Mike touched on it earlier as well, that was a really big help in the inventory process. And it works so well for us. It's become our best practice now at Ulta for the cases going forward, is this is the process that the entire team's following now.
Excellent.
Yeah, I would think that'd be a best practice for a lot of teams to follow if they can figure out how to make that technology work. It just seems like it would save so much time. I know we've talked about other cases that we've done on these webinars that, they've got trailers of merchandise that they're going through for weeks, trying to sort through. It sounds like you guys certainly came up with a pretty effective solution. Incredible stuff. Jack, do we have some questions if we do a quick one before we get on to Sean?
What specific tools and applications or online searches were used to find the fraudulent Amazon store sale? Was this a basic search? So that's for Mike.
Yes, so it was just a basic search. You couldn't access that from a smartphone application. You had to be on a desktop. Basically, on the right hand side, there's a search tab, right? And then you can do advanced search, and you can click through whatever you want, like pickup only, drop off only, ships only. And then you have options like, I believe it said something like chain or small business owner, and then it will give you the option to search for unique things. And that was what we ended up utilizing to find this online makeup store. I had to click through multiple pages of that item because it's sold rather frequently, it appears, but it'll tell you the Amazon seller storefront on the right hand side, which Mark actually walked me through on how to find that. And once you click on that, it'll bring you to it and it'll give you the option, do you want to see their storefront page? You click on it, and in this situation we clicked on it and there was hundreds, if not thousands, of items that were actively posted for sale. And it also provided you with the information of how many items have been sold in the last 30 days.
Excellent. Well, we're gonna invite everybody to, if you've got some additional questions for Mark or for Mike, if you throw them into the Q&A. We've asked them to kind of stick around and maybe field some of those if they can, recognizing that there's some that they can answer, some that they can't answer, but they'll take a stab at those as we look to move on and bring in our next speaker. So, gentlemen, thank you very much. Excuse me, thank you very much for that amazing presentation, and again for all the work that you guys do. I mean, that was an absolutely exceptional case.
Thank you, guys.
All right,
Great teamwork on that one too, guys.
Moving on, Jack, I'll let you introduce Sean.
Okay, now next up, batting cleanup for us today is Sean Garvey. He's Assistant Special Agent in Charge at Homeland Security Investigations. He's got a terrific case he's going to tell us about out of the Boston market. It's all yours, Sean.
Welcome, Sean.
All right, let me try to get my screen up here.
There you go.
All right, you guys seeing that okay?
You gotcha.
All right, good afternoon. Thanks for having me. As the guy said, my name is Sean Garvey. I'm an Assistant Special Agent in Charge for HSI here in New England, based out of Boston. I have responsibility for our transnational organized crime and cyber crimes division, which encompasses our financial and money laundering investigations units, our cyber crimes group, our child exploitation investigations unit, and our computer forensics program. I also oversee our certified undercover operation. I've been with HSI and its predecessor agency, the U.S. Customs Service, since 2001. And I started in New York, where I investigated primarily international narcotics trafficking and money laundering. And then I moved to headquarters in various roles, including serving on the director's staff and as the unit chief for our undercover operations unit. And I've been in Boston back home for about 12 years now. And I've supervised various investigative groups, including our counterproliferation investigations group, our narcotics task force, and now our financial and fraud investigations. Where's my cursor? For those of you that aren't familiar with HSI, I'll give you a quick overview. We were born out of the terrorist attacks of 9/11 and combined the investigative functions of the old U.S. Customs Service and the Immigration and Naturalization Services criminal investigations units. We are the principal investigative arm for the Department of Homeland Security, and we are responsible for investigating transnational crime and threats, specifically organizations that try to exploit global infrastructure through trade, travel, and finance. We have more than 10,000 employees, 7,100 of which are special agents assigned to 30 offices, SAC offices across more than 220 field offices in the U.S. We also have one of the largest, if not the largest, foreign deployed federal law enforcement presence. We have that number is now up to over 90 offices in 50 countries that is staffed with various special agents and criminal analysts. Our approach, basically, we try to use a very unique combination of criminal and administrative authorities, strategic partnerships that we've developed with law enforcement and non-governmental agencies. Again, our robust international footprint, and really try to leverage cutting-edge technology and innovative strategies for our criminal analysts to enhance cases. As you can see below, we have about 16 primary different areas that we investigate. And in this case that you'll hear about today, this one investigation hit on 7 of those programmatic areas that we're responsible for addressing. To give you a little more background on HSI New England, we have 13 offices that cover all 6 New England states. We're staffed with about 244 employees, including 180 approximately special agents, 25 criminal analysts, numerous administrative personnel that support cases, including forensic interview and victim assistance specialists, computer forensics analysts, and mission support specialists. We also have a very robust task force officer program where we augment our investigators with about 125 task force officers from state and local departments. I have to update my presentation for FY23, but just a snapshot in 2022, FY2022, we investigated just between our 13 offices, a little over 1,600 cases. We made almost 900 arrests, seized over $6 million in currency and assets. And on one of our other program areas, we rescued over 118 victims of child exploitation or human trafficking. Our financial investigations are primarily worked through the HSI El Dorado Task Force program. The El Dorado Task Force is something we take a lot of pride in. It's the oldest, largest, and most successful anti-money laundering task force in the nation. And it really is the first model that harnesses federal, state, and local resources to target financial crimes at all levels. Here in New England, we're proud to host the El Dorado Task Force. It's HSI-led, and we have partners from the Massachusetts State Police, the Boston Police Department, the MBTA Police Department, FBI, IRS, and U.S. Postal Inspection Service. As you can see, our agents and our task force officers focus on the most complex financial crimes. The task force started many, many years ago in the early 90s, and it was focused mostly on the methods of movements of illicit drug proceeds, which we still do today, but it's evolved over time into securities and investment scams, cyber and cryptocurrency schemes, organized retail crime, foreign corruption, money laundering, and frauds against the U.S. banking system, and elder fraud, among some of the primary program areas we look at. For those of you that have attended these webinars and involved in the ORCAs and everything for a while, I'm sure you've heard plenty about Operation Boiling Point, which is HSI's response to organized theft groups and organized retail crime, cargo theft, and other things threatening the U.S. supply chain. We're very proud of how we've partnered with public-private partnerships to try to take a lead in combating this very pervasive problem that is impacting all facets of the business industry, as well as providing a real challenge to some economic issues that are going on right now. Operation Boiling Point really focuses on 4 pillars, establishing public and private partnerships, developing actionable leads and investigative leads, disrupting and dismantling the organizations, and trying to create a robust public awareness campaign. As part of the public-private partnership, we definitely like to highlight that we understand the growing and continuing threat of organized retail crime, and in 2022, there was legislation introduced in the House. It's HR 9177. It's the Combating Organized Retail Crime Act of 2022. This is a very key piece of legislation that's still pending. It was referred to the Judiciary Committee in 2022, but has yet to be passed. Basically, what this would do, it would amend Title 18 of the United States Code to ensure that law enforcement has the federal law enforcement has the legal tools necessary to combat organized retail crime, and as we do in the other sectors to combat theft and diversion from other portions of supply chain. As one key component of it that we are especially proud of from HSI, if this is passed, HSI will be responsible for enacting a national organized retail crime coordination center, which will kind of streamline reporting, analysis, and distribution of leads. Like I said, this has been pending since 2022. We're pushing from our ends, but I think it's something that the ORCAs out there and the different associations in your companies that you all work for, this is really something that can strengthen the enforcement of the laws for, targeting the criminals that are impacting your stores. So I encourage you all to reach out to your congressmen and your senators and try to push to get this, get this bill moved out of committee and passed into law. Obviously, it goes without saying, the ORCAs are a huge part of our public-private partnerships that we're looking to expand upon with, CLEAR and RELA and all the other entities. In many ways, this public-private partnership that we've had and developed over the years was kind of the genesis or the catalyst for this case that we're going to hear about today. So I'll preface this with saying that this is still a very active, ongoing investigation. A lot of what I'm going to refer to is what's been cleared to be released based on the U.S. Attorney's Office press releases and things like that. When I can, I'll mention some specific names, but really I'll kind of talk in generalities about the organization as a whole and focus more on the coordination and the partnership that went into this to take kind of a unique approach to combat this crew. So Operation Family Affair, in 2022, the HSI New England El Dorado Task Force initiated this investigation into a criminal organization that was engaged in massive organized retail crime. It was a massive enterprise. This network was responsible for running booster crews that systematically targeted specific retail chains and were executing mass robberies, often violent, or different schemes to defraud stores and brands. Over the course of 2 years or so, this network orchestrated hundreds of thefts over a dozen states and over $1.5 million in documented losses. This crew primarily targeted the TJX brand stores, Victoria's Secret, and Sunglass Hut. And the most common forms of crime that they were committing were shelf sweeping and a very sophisticated debit card return scheme. As we'll go into a little bit more detail, as the case progressed, we saw an overlap with a traditional street gang, the Heath Street Gang. This gang has been in existence in the Boston areas for more than 40 years. It's based out of the Mildred C. Haley apartments, formerly known as the Bromley Heath Housing Development, hence the name, the Heath Street Gang. Currently, it's comprised of about 150 active members, and they engage in acts of violence to preserve the gang's power, territory, and reputation. And they are a pretty serious crew. They've been plaguing Boston for a number of years. Members are implicated in a number of murders, attempted murders, shootings, including the non-fatal shooting of a 9-year-old girl, which isn't mentioned here, but was the daughter of a Boston police officer, and the murder of a rival gang member by juvenile members of Heath Street that they recruit to commit some of their violence activities. This organization is very sophisticated. They use organized and widespread approaches to control their drug trafficking and distribution, as well as firearms trafficking. And from a criminal gang perspective, the financial activity committed by a street gang, it was some of the more sophisticated and multifaceted that we've seen. It encompassed everything from organized retail crime, credit card fraud, money laundering, identity theft, wire fraud, mail fraud, bank fraud, benefit fraud, you name it. If there was a way to generate money, they would do it. So how did this case begin and what was our investigative approach to it? Excuse me 1 second. Sorry about that. Just as a reminder, since the case is ongoing, we're going to kind of keep the details, a little bit higher. But this case, we received a lead from the HSI National Lead Development Center after referral from the New England State Police Network and the New England Organized Retail Crime Alliance, New ORCA. We had developed a relationship with NESPN and New ORCA a while ago based on some joint investigations that were worked, as well as some outreach through Operation Boiling Point. And it really was this lead that was coming into HSI was the genesis for starting this case. Initially, the ORC aspects of this case focused on Rachel McKinney and Rikara McKinney, as well as Tashonda Knight, as well as more than a dozen others who we aren't naming right now. And they were orchestrating the thefts and the fraud, that was resulting in this over almost $2 million loss, like we talked about. As we went through this, we quickly established familial links and social bonds between the main targets in the investigation, and hence the name Operation Family Affair. The coordination with Nespin, New ORCA, and the brand investigators was very key to this. Once we started digging into this, we were able to obtain very detailed information from internal investigations, police reports, financial loss totals to each of the impacted entities, video evidence, and even kind of the smallest details that were crucial in kind of piecing this all together. As we went through this, the investigation, the investigators, and the agents, we quickly were able to identify that Rachel McKinney was married to an individual named Raquel McKinney, who was a known Heath Street gang member. As we also saw, many of the members of the booster crews were also involved in romantic relationships with other known Heath Street gang members. It seemed to us pretty evidently that the organized retail crime portion of this case was being committed by the females associated with the gang. While not known or documented gang members, they were doing this on behalf of the gang to further their financial interests. So building off the information that we were, provided from a variety of sources, the El Dorado Task Force agents did what we do best. We followed the money. And what we found was a just massive, vast, and widespread pattern of financial criminal activity, including organized retail crime, credit card fraud, wire fraud, mail fraud, identity theft. Separate from the retail crime, we identified about $140,000 in fraudulent checks based off of stolen identities, which were directly related to some of the organized retail crime, the debit card return scheme. They used money that was generated when they would, do a return of stolen merchandise, get a debit card to go and use at the same store. They would resell that to a third party. Then they would use that money that they would turn into cryptocurrency to buy stolen PII that then they would use to, to commit other sorts of identity theft. As seems to be the new trend following the pandemic, there was a massive amount of COVID benefit fraud relief, both in the form of pandemic unemployment assistance and paycheck protection loans. This group obtained fraudulently almost $900,000 in documented losses for either PUA or PPP loans using stolen and fraudulent identity. 5 targets made 33 separate claims using stolen identities in 10 different states. They would then use this money that they obtained, and they would commit bank fraud, money laundering. And what we saw was all of this activity, from organized retail crime to the pandemic loans and things of that nature. All this was done was to continue the control and the financial impacts of the gang's criminal activities. The money was laundered to support continued efforts in narcotics trafficking and firearms trafficking. And basically, for a gang, we saw some extremely sophisticated movement of funds. They established shell corporations to assist in their pandemic fraud schemes. They created companies, cleaning companies, false LLCs that were generating letters of employment to support these fraudulent loan applications that were being submitted to the government. Like I said, there was a very significant amount of cryptocurrency use being done to launder some of their criminal proceeds. They were having involved in investment funds and mobile phone applications and peer-to-peer payment platforms. to move a lot of their proceeds. On one peer-to-peer app alone, we saw over $2 million in the course of 3 or 4 years being moved through that. And given the low dollar value that this peer-to-peer app can support, you can just imagine the number of individual transactions that occurred. Again, why were they doing this? This was all done with one purpose, to further ongoing criminal enterprises and conspiracies to support the gang, so they continue to control and commit violence against their rivals and control their perceived claimed territory. As the scope of the investigation grew, HSI quickly identified overlaps for the targets of our case with an ongoing ATF and Boston Police Department gang investigation, as well as targets that would be of concern to other federal agencies, including the IRS, the U.S. Department of Labor, and the Secret Service related to some of the paycheck protection loans, things of that nature. While each investigation that we identified was progressing through its own pace and its own stages, through the deconfliction that HSI led, it became evident that instead of attacking these as individual cases with 1 or 2 individuals, we needed to combine our resources and use a whole of government approach to kind of take on this particular organization. So quickly we started to work with the U.S. Attorney's Office. We got the assigned prosecutors for the ORCA investigations and the gang investigations together to figure out what the best enforcement strategy was. And HSI New England moved forward with getting this investigation designated under the OCDEF program as a priority transnational organized crime entity. For those of you who not familiar with OCDEF, it started as OCDEF stands for the Organized Crime Drug Enforcement Task Force. It was a way to combine federal, state, and local resources to attack the upper echelons of drug trafficking networks. But over the years, OCDEF has become a general clearinghouse for the Department of Justice as a way to marshal all the federal resources to attack, some of the more significant criminal organizations. Notably, this PTOC designation was the first PTOC designation in the District of Massachusetts. So it's pretty significant that HSI was able to bring all these partners together to the table, recognizing that what we started with might not be the ultimate goal or end destination for how these individuals were charged, but rather whatever information we could generate from our investigation to help an overall enforcement strategy was the approach we took. So ultimately, we came up with an enforcement strategy that we were going to charge the most significant offenses to maximize the efforts to disrupt and dismantle the polycriminal activities of the Heath Street Gang and its associates. So on February 14th of this year, HSI, ATF, BPD, and a host of other agencies, DOL, IRS, Secret Service, Postal Inspection Service, and the Mass State Police, we marshaled about 400 federal, state, and local law enforcement officers together, and we conducted a massive enforcement operation, resulting in approximately 40 arrests, the seizure of 2 kilograms of suspected cocaine, 5 firearms, and bulk U.S. currency. There were over a dozen search warrants executed that day. 5 of them were considered high-risk locations, necessitating the use of SWAT or tactical teams. Significantly, a number of criminals that were already in jail on unrelated charges were charged with being part of this ongoing RICO conspiracy. The RICO charges included, the charges included that day, RICO homicide, Hobbs Act, that was specifically ORC related to some of the violent acts committed during the robberies, kidnapping, theft of government funds, firearms and narcotics trafficking, bank fraud, wire fraud, and money laundering. So as you can see, when we came that day, we came ready to bring the full force of the investigative agencies together to bring what we can to take down this organization. So what did we see from this? Obviously, we saw a community impact. While we made a lot of seizures of stolen merchandise during some earlier search warrants in the case, the day of the takedown, unfortunately, didn't result in uncovering a massive stash of stolen goods. But it was everything we pieced together from the organized retail crime investigations along the way was used as a lot of predicate offenses to charge some of these violent gang members who had been evading prosecution for a number of years, to able to use that as the predicate offenses for the RICO charges. So, you know, it was a very significant step to be able to do that. You know, the reduction in violence speaks for itself. You know, Boston had been plagued with a number of shootings, a number of violent incidents, and it had an immediate impact to cool some of the violence associated around the Heath Street projects, you know, in the immediate aftermath. What we were able to do, more so the social services side for, you know, the city of Boston, was once the gang members were out of the area and their associates were out of the area, it gave social workers and other intervention services the ability to go in to the housing development there and interact with a lot of the juveniles who are on the verge of being recruited into the gangs. It gave them free ability to have these conversations that, if the gang members were holding on to their corners, just wouldn't have been able to take place. So hopefully we've been able to, you know, by having this coordinated effort, maybe we're able to, you know, keep 2, 3, 4, however unknown number of children right now from being recruited into a life of crime, and maybe we're able to make a little bit of difference. So it was definitely a community impact type of case. The other thing was, there's definitely an increased awareness. You know, the U.S. Attorney's Office held a press conference that detailed in great fashion the coordinated effort that went into this, and highlighted the role that the organized retail crime, you know, played in this gang's criminal activity. There was a lot of increased media coverage after it, but what we saw was it led to greater law enforcement coordination at the federal, state, and local level about organized retail crime, and how everything is not just a single shelf sweeping incident, how it could actually lead to something more significant. You know, basically the takeaway for me is that, you know, no single entity could do this in a vacuum. Without the combined efforts of all the investigators and analysts, both, you know, sworn law enforcement and civilians, we wouldn't have been able to piece together all of the criminal activity being done by this gang. Some of the things that we'd see, the smallest details that were captured in the ORC investigations, proved crucial to going towards, you know, putting together the whole puzzle, and were used in some of the predicate offenses for the RICO charges. You know, I think the path forward, like I said, for the law enforcement here, you know, HSI, especially HSI New England, we have a strong commitment to ORC investigations, so much so that we're starting to try to put together what we're going to call, under the auspices of El Dorado Task Force, our own organized retail crime coalition that is going to search or hope to combine, you know, the federal, state, and local law enforcement resources, continuing the public-private partnerships with, you know, New York, NESPN, and some of the other retail investigators. But more importantly, we're going to try to use this case as an example to get dedicated prosecutorial resources from the U.S. Attorney's Office for things that rise to the federal level, but also to bring in some of the local prosecutors from the district attorney's offices, recognizing that not everything will rise to the prosecution of federal prosecution, but to be able to have a fallback that, okay, if this case doesn't rise to the federal threshold, we have a dedicated point of contact at the state level to prosecute at the district attorney level. But it's not reducing the commitment. It's still going to have all of the resources, federal, state, and local, all the intelligence, all the investigators, all the analysts piecing it together, and we'll ultimately have a couple different venues where we'll be able to charge the cases. So that's pretty much Operation Family Affair in a nutshell. I know I kept it kind of high level, like I said, just because of some of the ongoing aspects. But it really is a unique approach, we think, to taking what started as an organized retail crime case to having a really true community impact. You know, and I think it's a way that we can go forward in a lot of aspects for these cases. You know, I'd like to, you know, happy to answer any questions. You know, but I want to, you know, thank, you know, New Yorka and NESPN and all the ORCAs for their continued partnership with HSI. And, you know, we're here to help. And if anybody needs an HSI contact in the areas you cover, you know, please let me know offline, and we'll be happy to share that with you. And thanks for the opportunity to speak with you guys today.
No, thank you, Sean. just tremendous information, and we appreciate you kind of putting yourself out there too to be that conduit, if people need the resources. So thank you very, very much for that. If we've got a couple of quick questions in the Q&A that Sean, you're able to respond to while we go and wrap up a few things here, because we're right up to just up about time. So probably for the better in some cases, because in this one, obviously, there's not a lot of questions that you might be able to answer, especially with the sensitivity of the information here, and we respect that completely. So thank you for that. If you stop sharing your screen for a sec, I'm going to share mine.
Okay, I think I did. Did I not?
No, just there should be a stop sharing on the. There you go.
1 second, there we go. Stop.
While we're going through that, Sean, it was a great example of how organized retail crime can lead to, other things above and beyond what we're dealing with organized retail crime. You've got the fact that they were using these funds to basically finance just about everything else that they were doing up there. You were able to show that this was a window, if not a door, into a lot of the other investigations that you're dealing with up there. It really does, I think, highlight how important it is that we look at what we're doing with these ORC cases at a much higher level.
Yeah, I agree. It was, when we started this case, we were pretty straight line. We're gonna, take down the 10 or 12 people that are involved in victimizing the stores and creating this massive loss. But I think the turning point for us was when we started partnering with ATF and BPD, there was one incident where somebody would have probably liked to have stayed on the street longer to see what would have happened with a different aspect of the case. Was trying to recruit an 11-year-old to shoot a rival gang member. So we had to quickly kind of change our perspective as to what's more important here. So we ended up arresting that individual, and then kind of refining our strategy as to, all right, let's just put everything against the whiteboard and see who could be charged, and let's do it at this point, and then we'll circle back around for the other aspects that are still out there later.
It was a terrific job.
Thank you.
Excellent job. All right. Well, that's going to bring us to an end for today. So before we go, we want to thank our sponsors once again, Genetec, Sensormatic, and Gatekeeper. Thank you guys for sponsoring us, and thank you all out there for taking just a couple minutes to learn a little bit more about each of these wonderful solution providers, Genetec, Sensormatic, and Gatekeeper today. I want to thank the LPF. And don't forget to track this if you're LPQ or LPC certified. You've got 3 CEU credits coming your way towards your continuing certification. There's that QR code that I promised. Scan that and make Stephanie super happy. Subscribe today. It's free with today's webinar and every other day, but especially with today's webinar. You can subscribe to the print magazine, have it sent to your house for free. You can also subscribe to all of our wonderful digital outputs. Scholarships for the law enforcement folks that are still on the phone. We've got, or are still on in the meeting. Scholarships available for your local department. Please reach out, Kevin M at learnitmedia.com, and let me know. I've got some free scholarships to give away. And if you're with retail and you know some folks on the law enforcement side that might benefit from the training, by all means, please give them my contact information, and I'm more than happy to help make that connection. And I will keep everybody posted about the new prosecutor and district attorney training that's coming. We want to get that audience involved with this as well and help educate them on how to build these great cases that we talked about today, and how to take them to court and really make an impact. And don't forget to go to lphall.com and nominate. If you got to nominate your LP leader, your team, your LP team, your law enforcement partner of the year. We might have just seen a couple of them today, I think. Your cases of the year, investigations of the year. And in this year, we have the outstanding ORCA. Get out there, get those nominations in. We've got about 30 days before nominations close. So I'm looking forward to to seeing who we narrow down as finalists for this year. And last but not least is just to tell everybody thank you so much for supporting us. Thanks so much for tuning in today. We really appreciate it. Just want to say thank you and stay safe, everybody. Jack?
A couple of great presentations today, everybody. Hope to see everyone at RELA in the coming weeks. Stay safe.
Outstanding. If anybody needs anything, feel free to reach out to Jack, myself, Stephanie, or feel free to connect with us on LinkedIn. Have a great afternoon. Have a great weekend. Thanks, everybody.